welcome to another episode of Belongs to the Shadows. I'm your host, Jaime Bennett, and I have Zombie Bear here. And the reason why he is hanging out with me to introduce this episode is because I'm going to be talking about zombies, the history of zombies in film, among other things. And this is Boris Karl. Might be related to Boris Karloff, who knows? But he's introducing this episode with me, and he's hanging out with me. He's a vegetarian zombie, though. He doesn't eat brains. He's perfectly polite, and I love him to pieces. I hope you enjoy this episode of Belongs to the Shadow.
So the first thing I'm going to talk about in this episode of Belongs to the Shadows, of course, is because it's about zombies, is the history of zombies. And I'm going to get this from history.com, and it's /topics/folklore/history of zombies. So if you want to read more on it, it does come from the History Channel. And here we go. Zombies. This was originally typed up on the internet September 13th of 2017, and it was updated June 10th of 2019. So the zombie can often be portrayed, or is often portrayed, as undead, flesh-eating, decaying corpse, has enjoyed a popularity surge in recent years. What comes to mind when you hear zombie? Well, I think of the film Night of the Living Dead, maybe The Walking Dead. I mean, there are so many zombie films that I could cover here. Whether they're devouring their prey in The Walking Dead, like I had mentioned, which is filmed around Conyers, Georgia, I believe. So that's interesting. It is filmed near my neck of the woods. But The Walking Dead getting their groove on in Michael Jackson's Thriller. I grew up with Michael Jackson's music. I was a kid in the 80s. I know I'm aging myself here, but Michael Jackson's Thriller is pretty much the first time that I even knew zombies existed as a kid. And that music video was fascinating to me. It was absolutely fascinating. And I loved watching Michael Jackson and the makeup during that time era. I know it was in the 80s, but it was like a movie. It was a cinematic thing, and it was very exciting to see that music video for the first time because of the makeup. I mean, it piqued my interest in the film industry and, SFX and makeup, and maybe that's where I started loving Halloween stuff. That's where my passion started, is with Michael Jackson's music video for Thriller. Zombies dominate pop culture, but are zombies real? That's a question you might be asking yourself, or have asked yourself, or now will ask yourself. Unlike many other monsters, which are mostly a product of superstition, like werewolves, vampires, you know, they're a product of superstition, religion, and fear. Zombies have a basis in fact, and several verified cases of zombies have been reported from Haitian voodoo culture. Isn't that interesting? Zombie traits. Here are the traits of zombies. A zombie, according to pop culture as well as folklore, is usually either a reawakened corpse with a ravenous appetite, or someone bitten by another zombie infected with a zombie virus. Zombies are usually portrayed as strong but robotic beings with rotting flesh, and their only mission in life, or afterlife, is to feed. They typically don't have conversations. It's more like, ugh. So, the grunt. Other the origins of zombies, the ancient Greeks did believe, or is believed to be the first civilization terrorized by the fear of the undead. Archaeologists have unearthed many ancient graves which had contained skeletons pinned down by rocks or heavy objects. It's to prevent the dead bodies from reanimating. Isn't that very interesting? I used to want to be an archaeologist, and I'll tell you why. Indiana Jones, of course. But we're not talking about Indiana Jones. I could probably carry on and on and on about my beloved Indiana Jones. But we're talking about zombies. So, zombie folklore has been around for centuries in Haiti, possibly originating in the 17th century when West African slaves were brought in to work on Haiti's sugarcane plantations. There was brutal conditions that had left a lot of the slaves, longing for freedom. According to some reports, the life, or rather afterlife, of a zombie represented the horrific plight of slavery. Zombies and voodoo. Voodoo, sometimes spelled Vodou or Vodun, Vodun, is a religion based in West Africa, and it is practiced throughout Haiti, as well as the Caribbean, Brazil, the American South, and other places with African heritage. Many people who follow the voodoo religion today believe zombies are myths, but some believe zombies are people revived by a voodoo practitioner known as a Bokor. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's spelled Bokor. My dialect sometimes causes me to mispronounce things, and for that I apologize. But I would say it's Bokar. Bokars have a tradition of using herbs, shellfish, animal parts, bones, and other objects to create concoctions, including zombie powders, which contain tetrodotoxin, a deadly neurotoxin found in, guess what? The pufferfish and some other marine species. If used carefully at sublethal doses, the tetrodotoxin combination may cause zombie-like symptoms, such as a difficulty walking, mental confusion, and respiratory problems. High doses of tetrodotoxin can lead to paralysis or a coma. This could cause someone to appear dead and be buried alive, then later revived. How scary is that? You know what comes to mind whenever they talk about that is I can't help but to think about Romeo and Juliet. You know how she took the poison and it stopped her heart, and he then took his life because he thought she was dead, and she awoke to find him dead instead. Yeah, maybe, just maybe, that was a zombie potion. It's a thought process. It's something to think about. Real zombies reported in medical journals. So here we go. Though it is rare, there are several credible reports in medical journals of people, good Lord, people, let's try that again, rewind. People using these compounds to induce paralysis in people and then revive them from the grave. A 1997 article in the British medical journal, The Lancet, described 3 verifiable accounts of zombies. In one case, a Haitian woman who appeared to be dead was buried in a family tomb, only to reappear 3 years later. Yikes. An investigation revealed that her tomb was filled with stones, and her parents agreed to admit her to a local hospital. In another well-documented case, a Haitian man named Clairvis Narcissus Narcisse, there we go, Clairvis Narcisse, there we go, entered a local hospital with a severe respiratory problems in 1962. After he slipped into a coma, Narcisse, good lord, I will get it, trust me, Narcisse was declared dead, was buried shortly thereafter. But 18 years later, a man walked up to Angelina Narcisse in a village marketplace, insisting she was his sister. Doctors, townspeople, and family members all identified him as Clairvis Narcisse, who claimed he had been buried alive, then dug up and put to work on a distant sugar plantation. So, what is this telling you all? I guess maybe this is an indicator that people should stay away from sugar, maybe? To not work with sugar? I don't know. Those sugar plantations are kind of seeming to be, a little bit of a zombie area. But zombies in pop culture. According to the Undead 18th Century by Linda Truce, zombies appeared in literature as far back as 1697 and were described as spirits or ghosts, not cannibalistic beings. They arrived on the film scene around the same time as their monster peers, Frankenstein and Dracula, with the 1932 release of White Zombie. So, no, that's not just a music band. It is an actual movie. But it wasn't until 1968 that zombies acquired a cult following of their own with the release of Night of the Living Dead, directed by George Romero. Yes, Night of the Living Dead. That is a cult classic. I could go on and on about Night of the Living Dead. They even made a spoof that they showed after Night of the Living Dead, sometimes when they would show or air Night of the Living Dead on television. It was called Night of the Living Bread. So yes, I could go on and on about that. About that movie, it is a cult classic, and that's one of the earliest zombie movies that I remember watching. But it wasn't until 1968 that zombies acquired a cult following of their own with the release of Night of the Living Dead, like I had said, directed by George Romero. But it bears repeating. Over the next 15 years, Romero directed 2 more zombie films, Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, as special effects technology improved with each film. The zombies appeared more gruesome and more realistic. From the 1980s on, dozens of zombie films were made. Even Scooby-Doo got in on it. He battled zombies in the 1998 film Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. In 2013 release of World War Z, which is a really great movie. If you like zombies, and I'm not even a huge fan of zombies, I hate saying that, especially since I'm doing this special edition of Belongs to the Shadows about zombies. I hate saying that. I hate saying that about myself. Please don't hate me, but I'm not a huge fan of zombies. But World War Z, starring Brad Pitt, was a really, really good film. If you like zombie films, I suggest you watch it. It did bring zombie culture to a disturbing new level. Not surprisingly, television jumped on the zombie bandwagon with shows like iZombie, which is a great show. I love that show, and Helix. But no zombies ever terrified more television viewers than those on The Walking Dead, like I had mentioned earlier. Each show features a post-apocalyptic zombie feeding frenzy that leaves fans horrified and yet unable to look away. Are zombies in the Bible? The modern day carnivorous zombie isn't in the Bible, but there are many references to bodies being reanimated or resurrected, which may have inspired zombie myths throughout history. For example, the book of Ezekiel describes a vision where Ezekiel is dropped in a boneyard and prophesies to the bones. The bones start to shake and become covered with muscle and flesh until they're reanimated, yet there was no breath in them. So there you go. And the book of Isaiah also states, "Thy dead men shall live, together with my dead body shall they arise. Awake and sing, ye that dwell in dust, for thy dew is as the dew of herbs, and the earth shall cast out the dead." Quote, in quotations. What's our fascination with zombies? Good question. Why does the modern world have such a love affair with zombies? History may be to blame. According to Stanford literary scholar Angelica Bakira Vidigar tells Stanford News she believes that mankind's perception of violence took a drastic turn after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. She feels such large-scale disasters caused people to fictionalize their deaths on a mass scale, focus on survival of the fittest, a common theme among zombie narratives. That makes sense. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, agrees. They took advantage of zombie mania and created a zombie preparedness website to motivate people to prepare for disasters and often tips on how to survive a zombie apocalypse and other catastrophes. The site was a huge hit. So, do you believe in zombies? Do you think that we need to prepare for a zombie apocalypse? At this point, I hate to say it, and I'm not making fun of it by any means. It's no laughing matter, but at this point, nothing would surprise me. I mean, we have COVID, we have had many crazy breakouts and many crazy things to hit. So, I mean, a zombie disease would not surprise me. Whether you're a fan of zombies or the thought of running into one causes you to sleep with one eye open, they are a part of modern pop culture. Although the zombie myth has a basis in fact, today's zombies have taken on a life of their own. You can say that again. So going back to the first zombie film, you can get this from library.cmu.edu/about/news/2017-10/legacy dead history zombie. The roots of the zombie tradition in American drama can be traced to Henry Francis Downing's Voodoo from 1914. Though it didn't directly feature the living dead creatures that we know as zombies, the play was set in the Caribbean and featured voodoo magic as part of the plot, both of which are essential elements in the zombie tradition. Downing was an African American member of the diplomatic corps in Liberia, but he wrote a variety of plays as well as novels based on his own globetrotting knowledge. An intriguing what if of film history involves the fact that famed African American filmmaker Oscar Micheaux was familiar with and made one film based on Downing's work. Always on the prowl for potentially filmable stories written by African American authors, Micheaux could easily have placed himself at the leading edge of a new genre if he had made a film version of Downing's play, but the exotic tale doesn't seem to have caught his eye. So even if he had entered the field, Micheaux would not have been alone. A small but not insignificant number of films of the teens and 20s utilized plots which included voodoo themes, but none of them had survived. Instead, this distinction of being the first zombie movie is usually awarded to Victor Halperin's 1932 opus White Zombie, starring none other than Bela Lugosi. This film defined the basic perimeters of zombiness, which would be in place prior to Romero's appearance on the scene. It was set in an exotic tropical clime. Rule number 1, whose voodoo conscious population is mostly black. Rule number 2, the plot involved the evil sorcerer Legendre, who is skilled in the ways of voodoo. Rule number 3, he uses a drug to kill his enemy and enslaves their undead bodies. All of this is in quotations, by the way. Rule number 4, this practice ends badly for pretty much everyone except the zombified love interest and her husband, to whom she is restored after Lugosi and his zombies plunge over a cliff to their real and final deaths. Conspicuously missing is any eating of brains, actual revived dead corpses, or an unknown cause for the undead shenanigans. White Zombie was a financial success for its independent producers, but it did not spawn countless imitators. Instead, zombies and voodoo made occasional appearances in film over the next 10 years. The Halperins tried an unsuccessful follow-up in the year of 1936 called Revolt of the Zombies. Silent film veteran director Marshall Nealon filmed a voodoo-themed story called Chloe in the year of 1934, and Nina Mae McKinney, the Black Garbo, was featured in voodoo tale called The Devil's Daughter in the year of 1939. All of these films followed the established template, highlighting exotic locations, prominently featuring black cast members, and utilizing threatening voodoo curses. Still, there was no brain eating. During the Second World War, 3 films had brought zombies further into the mainstream. 2 comedies, Ghostbreakers, and Zombies on Broadway, including zombified characters, though they dispensed with most of the other trappings that had previously defined the zombie voodoo film. The former, a successful Bob Hope vehicle, featured famed African-American actor Noble Johnson as a threatening presence on Paulette Goddard's inherited Caribbean estate, but did not dwell on the possible voodoo origins of the character. Johnson was a major player in early African American filmmaking, but is now best remembered as the native chieftain on Skull Island in the original version of none other than King Kong. Zombies on Broadway depicted a pair of publicity. I'll get it, I promise. Publicity men heading to the Caribbean to find a real zombie as part of an advertising campaign for a new nightclub, employing poor Bela Lugosi as yet another zombie-making villain. This film has one of the bumbling, decidedly not undead comic duo injected with zombie serum as part of Lugosi's experiments. Fortunately, this provides the authentic zombie they need, but unfortunately, the serum, guess what, wears off by the time they return home. In both of these cases, mostly white cast contends with conspicuously black zombies, but any threat posed by the catatonic slaves is mitigated by the comedic aspects of the films. So, what an amazing history that zombies have in film and in history. I mean, um, yeah, it's interesting. I'm reading this right along with you all as I'm telling you. Like, I'm learning some of this stuff for the first time as I'm looking it up and telling you all. So, we're learning about zombies together, class. Other zombie films appeared in the decades that followed. Valley of the Zombies in 1946, Zombies of Mora Tau in 1957, but they continued to at least pay lip service to the basic tenets of the zombie/voodoo film established by White Zombie, and then George Romero came along. Here we go, folks. Romero had good reasons for calling his undead creatures ghouls instead of zombies. They didn't fit into any of the categories which would previously have defined the word zombies. They were fully reanimated dead corpse, and there's that whole business about feasting on the flesh of the living. By eventually embracing the term, however, what Romero did was completely redefine the notion of the zombie. The Caribbean culture context, the connections to a particular African experience, and the notations of zombies as slaves in the thrall of a sorcery performing master, all of that was swept away by the film Night of the Living Dead. The zombie is now a safely universal experience devoid of cultural specificity. I can't pronounce that word. It's not cultural specific. There we go. We will just bypass that word and we will carry on. It's not cultural specific. It's like some people can't say the word spaghetti. Well, apparently I can't say that word. Everyone dies, so anyone can join the army of the undead. There's no knowledge of voodoo magic that is required since zombiness is perpetuated by contact with other zombies. No, not by religious rituals. Zombies have now become cultural avatars of an entirely different kind. Um, so yeah, yep. George Romero changed the aspect of zombies. And you have Disney now. Like, Disney is even trying to jump onto the scene of zombies, and they have that film that is called Zombies. They have numerous zombie films. I think there's 3 zombie films now, and it's filled with music and it's filled with humans getting along with zombies, and it's a cute film for kids. I understand the premise behind it. I understand what Disney's trying to do. There are so many zombie films. There's Shaun of the Dead. There's Zombieland. I believe Zombieland has 2 Zombieland films now. Yeah, there's Zombieland Double Tap, which is the second film in the industry. There are so many zombie films. I'll look them up. We will list off some zombie films for you all to check out. Let's see. If you're interested in any of them. If you're anything like me, you've never really been into zombies, and like I said, I hate to say that, especially since I'm doing a special edition of this show about zombies, but why not? This show's all inclusive. We're not going to leave zombies out, are we? Might as well include them, right? Um, I say that I wasn't really a huge fan of zombies. I take that back because I did like Night of the Living Dead and Corpse Bride. I mean, hello, that's about a zombie, right? And then you've got Nightmare Before Christmas. Sally's a zombie. So, okay, I like zombies. I will rephrase that. I'm a fan of zombies because I like Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas and I love Corpse Bride. And I love the movie Warm Bodies. That movie, oh, I love it so much. It's hilarious because the guy says to himself in the film, the zombie, he says to himself, "Don't be creepy, don't be creepy." And I love that. I love that film. It's awesome. If you have not checked out that film, I'm not sponsored by that film, by the way, but if you've not checked out that film, please do yourself a favor and check it out. There's Evil Dead. There is Jennifer's Body. There is so many zombie films. So many. There's I Am Legend. That's a really good zombie film. If you've not caught that film, you need to do yourself another huge favor and go see I Am Legend. Um, and then, make yourself a list of zombie films, and to go along with that, you might as well make a list of vampire films. Why not? There's 28 Days Later. That's a zombie film. There is The Return of the Living Dead. There's a comedy about a zombie called My Boyfriend's Back. That one's pretty funny. So they have made comedies about zombies. They have made horror films about zombies. They have made kid-friendly films about zombies. So, yeah. Zombies are a huge part of pop culture. And like I said, it goes all the way back to Haiti. They had a fear of the dead reanimating and putting rocks on their bones or heavy objects on their bones. And I mean, who am I to say that it couldn't actually happen? I mean, there might become a disease or a virus that makes people act like zombies. I know that there are drugs that make people act like zombies, and um, one of one of our relatives, mine and my husband's relative, um, one of my husband's relatives was telling us about a time that he had went to New Orleans, and he said that he had seen an actual zombie. This person came out of the bar and was walking like a zombie and making the noises of a zombie and ran into a light pole and just acted like a zombie. Maybe he drank some kind of elixir that made him act, and it's in quotations here. Maybe he drank some kind of elixir that made him act like a zombie. Who knows? I'm gonna say nothing is surprising to me, and I hate to say that. Like, I have been through so much stuff through my years of living. Like, COVID, we've had pandemics, I mean, there's so much stuff that I have seen, that I have been witness to, that it wouldn't surprise me if a zombie virus happened. Who knows? Um, but they're a huge part of pop culture. And me saying that I'm not a huge fan of zombies, I prefer Dracula. I love Dracula. Zombies is not my favorite, you know, scary or monster. That's not my favorite monster, but there are a lot of really awesome zombie films, and the directors and the creators of those films, they deserve huge props and an applause. I might as well say applause, 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 because that takes some imagination, it takes some creativity, and a lot of those films are very well The screenplays are very well written. The scenery, the graphics, everything that is involved in the films is really, really well done. And like I said, you need to check out World War Z. That is a really, really good film. Brad Pitt does an amazing job in that film. The director does an amazing job. It's just an incredible film to see. You have other films like Resident Evil. You have films that are along those lines that are just absolutely amazing, and a lot of times they don't get the recognition that they deserve. They don't get noticed a lot of times, and they deserve to be noticed. There's a zombie movie that I watched when I was younger, and I forget what it was called. It had train in the title, and that was like a very freaky film. I wish I could remember what it was called. My uncle my uncle loves horror films, and maybe that's where my love of Halloween and horror films actually started, is because my uncle would rent scary movies. And the 80s was different, people. I watched scary films when I was a kid. My mom and dad are really great parents, so please don't be judgmental of them, but the 80s were different. They were different. Okay, they were different. And I watched scary films. I would watch Child's Play, and I watched Freddy Krueger, and I watched all these scary films. And I turned out okay, right? Wink, wink. No, I turned out perfectly fine. I absolutely love Halloween. I love horror films, and I guess, zombie films are not far-fetched for me to like. I mean, there are, like I said, a lot of really good, really well done zombie films. You do have, your B-rated films. Some of them are not as good, but don't overlook them. There are some B-rated films that are not noticed and don't get the recognition that they deserve. They don't get recognized as a good film because they get thrown into the B-rated category. Um, I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and stay tuned after this episode for a special announcement.
I really hope that you enjoyed that episode of Belongs to the Shadows. I hope that it was educational, spooky, and informational. Until next time, stay spooky, boys and ghouls. Say goodnight, Zombie Bear.
Time for that special announcement. As you all know, I have been, well, maybe you don't all know, but I have been involved in the Face of Horror contest. I made it to the top 5, and now I need to make it to the top 2, with, if I have any chance of winning. But it does go to an important cause. I wanted to tell you that you're not just, whenever you pay for votes, you're not just paying for me to possibly get to the top 2, you are also supporting a very important cause. It goes to the B Plus Foundation, which is for pediatric cancer research. It goes to help the families of kids dealing with cancer. So please, if you're not voting for me, if you're not wanting to pay for votes to get me to the top, at least pay for votes to support this very important cause. Also, I need to announce that Belongs to the Shadows, it's my dream for it to go out on the open road. I have done an episode on location before, but in order to do more episodes, I need to find a sponsor. Anybody who's interested in sponsoring the show, please reach out to me. Also, I have my Venmo listed. So if you want to, send tips, not necessary to watch the show, but if you want to send a tip or, send some funds to help the show to keep getting better and better, to help this show go out on the open road, feel free to do that. It's not required. I just expect people to sit back and enjoy the show, but tips are always appreciated because it'll help the show to get better, and it'll help me be able to film on more locations like in Savannah or maybe in New Orleans. It's my dream to do a whole episode about Marie Laveau. So my Venmo is listed on this page.